good news for those of you who bought this Wineglass file with the stem on it. I have added glitter to this file. So if you already purchased this file on Creative Market, then these updates will just be added right in there in your account. So you just have to download it again and you'll get the new stuff. But if you're purchasing it fresh, then this is what you'll see right from the start. So I've expanded the folder, and you can see at the bottom we have our white background. If I turn that off, you can see through the glass. And then we have the wine glass itself. And if I open up that, you can see there's this layer called wine glass, which is the basic shape. There's the reflection, which is down here. If it's on a shiny surface, you might want that, but if it's sitting on like concrete or something, you might turn that off. And then a few shadows. And normally I would just squash those all into one layer, but I figured I'd leave them loose so you could play around and figure out which one you like to use, or just leave them all on. And then, so I've seen people selling glitter dipped wine glasses in many, many different ways, and many portions of the glass dipped. So what I did, trying to make this an easy to use file, you can actually go in and edit the mask and drag it up and down to reveal or hide parts of the glass and have the glitter show on the other parts. But then you're working on a mask inside of another layer, and there's these nested things going on, and I thought that would be confusing. So what I did was just preset a bunch of different amounts of glitter. And then you can just turn on the one that applies to what you sell. So if I turn on this layer, let me just turn that one off. Okay, so starting from the bottom and going up to the top, we have the bottom layer says base only. If I click on that, you can see this is just covering the very bottom part of the glass. And also I'm going to open it up and show you inside. And the insides of most of these are the same. Let me see, I'll just double check. Okay, yeah. So inside we have the layer with the glass. So it has our glitter and then a mask in the shape of the glass, and it's just showing the bottom part. And then we also have our color layer. So by default, it's gold. This color layer on top is where you can drag things around on like the hue and change what color it is, and then the saturation, brighter is to the right, more black and white is to the left, or lightness, if you dragged all the way left, it just gets darker and darker until it's black, or all the way right, it gets lighter and lighter until it's white. So that's how that works. There's also a layer in this same folder, but at the top above all the different glass layers, it's called optional shading over glitter. If you turn that off, it just looks a little bit flatter. Turn it back on and it adds some dimension and some shading. It does add the dimension and shading all the way up the glass, so you might not like that. But I find that for the variations where the glitter is going higher on the glass, it's nice to have the shading in there. It really makes it look more natural. So it is optional. You can turn it off if you want. So that's base only. Next up we have base plus half the stem. That's how that looks. And if I turn on the optional shading, it looks like that. You can just see it gets a little darker here and down here. Then we have base plus stem. So it's going all the way up to where the bottom of like the bowl part of the wine glass is. And then we have a quarter of the glass. Now, when you start getting up to here, chances are, I think that you're probably not going to have vinyl on top of your glitter. So you're going to want to turn off the Smart Object layer, which is up here, this red or the blue area, and just hide that. So this is a quarter of the glass. And if I open that up, you can see there's a layer in here called Inner Glow for the quarter of the glass. So that's this part where it looks like you can see through to the back. So you're kind of seeing the inside of the glass. That's that layer. If I turn that off, it just looks like this sort of flat shape. So I turn that on, so it looks like you're seeing through the glass. And then if we turn our optional shading on, which I do suggest for any of these yellow layers, see it looks more dimensional and more real. Close that. And then next up we have half the glass. Looks like that. 3/4 of the glass and the entire glass. And these are just arbitrary colors that I've picked. You will of course pick the colors that you have. And then if you aren't using the glitter, you can hide this entire folder. And then you just have the glass. And then we have our smart objects, which if you've looked at any of my other videos, they all work the same way, or they soon will when I update all my files. But we have these 2 red layers. These are meant to go together. So the top one is Smart Object Front. Double click to add your design. So if we show this layer, you can see that this is where the smart object lives on the front of the glass. If you double click it, it opens up in a new tab. And this is where you can replace my design with yours. So you just turn this off and put in your design. I didn't make any changes, so I'm not going to save. But if you do make changes, you have to save before you close this folder. This tab, or the changes will not show back here. The next red layer is called Smart Object Back. So this is just, and it says duplicate of front. So this really is just a copy of what's on the front. And you can turn the opacity down to make it look more natural. So this is if you have something on the front and you have the same thing on the back and you want to show it, then you would turn on that layer. Or you can have this blue layer is Smart Object Back Separate, is what I wrote, because it's not a copy. So when you update the front smart object here, it's not going to also update this back one, which is represented by this blue area. You'll have to edit that one separately in its own smart object. Does that make sense? So if you had something that was wrapped around the glass, like you had a word that was, really long or something, like maybe, I don't know, maybe it said wedding or marriage. So the first 3 or 4 letters would be, you'd put them on this top red layer, which is the front, MARR. And then you might put IAGE on this back layer. But for most cases, I think you're probably just going to be very simply using this one layer that's just the front. So I hope that makes sense. If you ever have any questions, let me know, either on YouTube in the video section or in Creative Market. You can send me a message or post it in the product page or over on my website at sarahdesign.com.